All right, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and get started while people are still finding their seats. We don't want to get behind at all. So thank you all for being here today. I'm Katie. I'm the general manager at ADAC. We're so excited to welcome you to day one of Design ADAC, our spring market. Before we turn things over to Lynn and this fabulous panel, I just want to remind everyone to grab a copy of the event guide here. We've got lots of great events going on this week, so make sure that you register for anything you're not currently registered for. Things have sold out already. And then remember that during our spring market, we celebrate our Southeast Designers and Architect of the Year. The award ceremony is on Thursday night, but all of our finalists are celebrated throughout the entire week. Tomorrow in particular is a celebration for the finalists, and that's going to be at Made Good. So stop by if you want to meet all of the finalists for that award. And then there's some fun photos in the back of our event guide of last year's gala and all the winners as well. So check all of that out. Have some fun with us this week on social media. Our handle is at ADAC Atlanta, and we use the hashtag Design ADAC this week. Be sure to tag us. We'll share everything, and we want to make sure that everybody's having fun, and we love to see how much fun you all are having. So be sure to post everything on social media and tag us this week. Also, guess who else you can tag? All of our media partners, all of our showrooms, and all of our speakers, because all of their handles are in this handy little event guide as well. I want to thank our media partner today. That's going to be Southern Home. Our showroom today is Samuel & Sons, and we're going to go upstairs to Samuel & Sons for a reception and a book signing with Young. That's going to be Suite 311. They have a beautiful, gorgeous showroom that they just opened last year. So come check that out. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Lynn Terry, who's the editor of Southern Home.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here once again. I love a packed house. That's always the goal, to have a really good lineup that is going to be informative as well as entertaining. So without further ado, Marie Flanigan is architect, interior designer, mother of three, lives in Houston. Young is based in New York, mother of three adult children. If you haven't seen Hoppers, her daughter is one of the animators on Hoppers. She's out in New York, and then she will be signing her book, A Mood, a Thought, a Feeling. It's a beautiful book. There is a short book review in the current issue of Southern Home, but it is beautiful. And then Elizabeth Lawrence is also based out of New York, and she is a partner with Bunny Williams, so very eponymous firm, and she is going to have a book out with Bunny in the fall. So we know that Elizabeth and Young are from New York, but we like to say they get the South, and they got here quickly and may or may not be so eager to get on that plane. Although we will say Elizabeth is going to be very quick when she goes, because she is single-handedly saving her 3-year-old from a fundraising event in New York. So she's going to be flying out of here to go rescue her husband and 3-year-old, and in it to win it, right?
He said it's very appreciative.
Yes, yeah. So, okay. So, and I also, Joy and her team at Samuel & Sons, they've done a beautiful job, and I think y'all will have an amazing time just seeing their beautiful trim up there and what they have to offer, and trim is certainly where it's at. So I do want to tell you that this is a kind of a brain trust up here, and last night at dinner, we don't take ourselves terribly seriously, but we were talking about revenue opportunities. And you know, how many times have you been to a fast food store, even a convenience store, and there's like, would you like to tip? Swipe 10%. We were thinking, because we're very elevated, our wording can be, inspired by a long-standing tradition of expressing appreciation. We've thoughtfully introduced a gratuity option as part of our service experience. So if any of you would like to increase your revenue by 10, 15, or 20%, there's that opportunity. And then we thought of the punch card. You know, I mean, if you're a frequent customer, if you have 10 houses, maybe the 11th we can talk about. So, and then finally, to make sure we take care of our sponsor, we thought you can make earrings out of these. So if any of you are thinking about starting a little cottage industry, these little things make wonderful earrings and necklaces. So without that, so I'm going to say, we're going to start with just rapid fire, just to get things kicked off here. So one design detail you can't live without.
Good architecture.
Good architecture.
Pillows.
Texture.
Texture, okay. A trim or textile you're loving right now.
Oh, rope trim. Also flowers, like florets.
Okay.
Floret buttons.
Mixing trims. I'm kind of layering, a tape trim with a cordon tape on the edge of a curtain, and I'm mixing it up.
Okay.
I like that.
Marie?
Contrast welts and fringe.
Okay. Brush fringe, eyelash fringe.
Bullion.
Bullion. Bullion. Okay, bullion is really having a moment right now. Okay. A small upgrade that instantly elevates the room.
New curtains.
Good lighting.
Painting the ceiling.
Oh, that's a good
Ooh,
one.
that's good. Okay. And I would say like lampshades. Lampshades
Oh,
are
yeah, that's a
just
good one.
really having a moment, I would think. Okay, the most underrated design detail.
Underrated design. I think it's the GIMP. I think a lot of people, that's something that always happens in our office with new designers. They're like, what's a GIMP? GIMP is something that you have to cover the nail heads. But there's so much fun you could have with it.
I'm going to add to Young's that a contrast outside back on a chair can really elevate it with a GIMP.
Yep.
We get along.
I would say architectural millwork.
Yeah. So for so long, cove molding, everybody wanted cove molding, the simplicity, but I'm seeing that, egg and dart, Greek key, they're all coming back in such a big way. So we'll talk about that. Okay, one finishing touch every home should have.
Tissue covers, please. Just please put all your, I know that the people at Kleenex, make those, and there's someone designing those boxes, but please, there's so many beautiful tissue covers on the market. When I go back to a client's house and they've got one sitting there in the cardboard, I'm like, what? We've bought you for every other room. Wait, just call us. Tissue covers, please. Sorry, passion.
We like that passion.
I want to know what kind of tissue covers that you are loving.
All of them. There's beautiful linen ones. There's woven ones.
There's the pigeon and poodle one.
Yep, pigeon and poodle.
I would say lampshade, custom lampshades. Really important.
I would say correctly sized area rugs that are luxurious to the touch.
Yeah, okay. All right, your favorite way to add personality to a neutral space?
Art. Really good, interesting art that reflects the personality of the homeowner.
I would say texture. I'm working on an apartment right now for a client who every other home has been, she describes it as boho. She wants to be very boho, and she doesn't. And so I'm like, how do we get her out of the boho thing and me out of the boho thing? Because that's just what I think of when I think of her. And so we're trying to do this Park Avenue apartment that's a little more chic. And she wants colors. So I am really into textured wallpapers at the moment because I feel like there's so many great ones out there that are different finishes and have a little bit of color and can kind of keep it a little more neutral, keep her a little bit more serene. And so that's where I am at the moment.
I would say vintage pieces and natural materials like stone, natural wood.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so when you begin designing a space, at what point do you start thinking about the details, like a trim, a lampshade? When do you start thinking about that?
We like to start thinking about that from the very beginning. We start by thinking about the global details of the entire home and what are the rules of the home? How are those rules going to find their way as a thread throughout all the spaces? We even create a board that we call global details, and that's like what kind of trim, what kind of door knob, hardware, things like that. But then obviously you establish the rules to break them, and then we go into each of the individual spaces and decide what is the language of this room. And even last week, I'm working on this house in Houston that we haven't even broken ground yet, and they're sending me cabinet hardware, details, which I love thinking about that early on, because where earlier in the phase they were sending me like French country things, and then now they're sending me very contemporary, integrated architectural details that's infused into the cabinetry. And so that talking about those types of details early help inform what is the language of this house and how are we going to carry it out in each of the spaces in their own way.
Okay, Marie, let me just ask, we're all dying to ask, at one point, if you start out French country and now you're going in, like, at what point do you say, whoa, you're speaking Portuguese and we're over here speaking French?
Well, I think at this stage, I like to take the approach of a lot of listening and absorbing. Don't try to make too many judgments right off the bat, because they're not in the world of design, sure. And they're kind of educating themselves on what they like. They don't even have the words necessarily always. This isn't somebody who's done a million homes right. before, but they're doing kind of their dream home, and they're just discovering what they like. And sometimes that goes the entire length of the project. And so I kind of like to sit back and just absorb and then kind of take the details I think really work. And I like to collaborate with the entire team, like work with the architect and decide what is the language of this house? How can we really infuse the interiors with the architecture in a really beautiful, seamless way, but make it one of a kind?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, to your point, clients really don't know what they want. And so I think it's really important to sell to them the big picture. Like, what's the overall vibe of the house? What's the overall objective? And really keep it sort of big picture. But even when we're, kind of coloring the big picture, for us, from the beginning, we're already thinking about the details. And the details will adjust. But I think it's really important to get buy-in in the bigger picture, which is the architecture, the finishes, then the furniture plan, and then you're going to bring in the details with the lampshades and the gimp and the trims and the moss fringe. But you kind of have to wait till your client's ready to accept it, because if you try to sell a silk moss fringe on day one, they'll be like, oh my God, I can't.
So you get there in the end, but you're patient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to guide them through it.
No, definitely. I mean, I don't know if you two feel this way, but how many times does a client come to you with like so many images and they are all over the place?
Yep.
And sometimes they come with, well, I really just like this trim on the sofa. And it's like, but we need to build the house first. We need to figure out what the architecture is. And really a lot of times it's, we are educators, because we are trying to take them through that process of all of their images and the things they're thinking about and help them narrow it down and really say, where is this house? How are you living in it? And take them on that journey to get there. And then when you get there, you can really start having fun with all of the hardware and those details. And I think a lot of clients really like that stuff as well.
So how do trims, whether they're on upholstery or drapes, how do they influence your design? Or do you say, okay, I'm gonna, like Elizabeth, you said you like to layer. At what point do you say, okay, this is good, and God rested, or do you say, let me put these trims together in a way that's different? How do you decide? What's your thought process?
Well, it really is about the client. I mean, right now I have this young 32-year-old client who's building a large home in Connecticut, and she has come to me from the beginning wanting all of these details. And so that's been really fun for me because I like that. But then I have other clients who don't want that. And it's something I think a lot about when I'm looking at other people's work. I remember that there's a client behind that. There's someone with an opinion. And so you may say, I don't love everything in this room, but it's not really so much about the designer. There's a person there. And so, once you start to have those conversations, and you can say there are some clients who want 4 trims on a curtain, and a valance, and there is nothing wrong with that. What we do is so subjective. And I always say, like, my color may be blue and yours might be green, but it doesn't mean I'm right and you're wrong. But it's trying to figure out what they want, and you do have to help your clients edit and pull back. You can't give them everything they always want, but you have to take them on that journey.
Yeah, I always tell my team that, and I'm sure we've been talking a lot about our teams, by the way, but I always tell them that don't forget that we have to guide them. Even if clients say, I want blue trim and this and that and the other and custom whatnots, it's really important for us to guide the conversation and lead the way, because if we do everything they want, then they'll have designed the house and it's not going to look that great. So I think it's really important, again, to think about how do you create this big picture, and those details and those trims and dressmaker details all go to support that bigger image. And what you want from the client is like, wow, this looks amazing as a total room, versus having them, obsess about small details.
And I love how much design is leaning into these types of details right now, and they not only can add decorative details, but with the color drenching and so much of what we're seeing, it can just add so much depth and layering. And lately, I've been really having a lot of fun with these types of details, not just on the furnishings, but applying them to the architecture in really trying to be innovative ways. Like recently, we took trim, and instead of doing like wall paneling, we layered the trim over the wallpaper in the entire room to create, like a softer, more bedroom style layering. And I just think you can have so much fun in different ways, sometimes more minimalistic. It doesn't have to be a super traditional aesthetic. You can use them in ways to create pattern, repetition, depth, and layering.
Well, and I feel like most of your interiors in Houston, and I don't know that if it's changed, but you are very architecture driven in terms of your details, and the furnishings tend to play a supporting role to the architecture. Now, I don't, that's just my view.
Well, I appreciate that. I would say that's absolutely how I personally like to design. Obviously we are not filling the roles of the incredible architects that we get to work with, but that's how I start every project, is basically do the architectural elevations. I like to kind of create this framework, really lean into the architectural proportions and alignment, and then it's like painting the canvas. Once you've got the proportions right and the alignment right, then it's so easy to just take a paintbrush with all of these fun things and bring it to life.
Mm-hmm. So can you talk about a project where this one little detail just really made the room sing? I know that there are a lot of details that make a room truly, but it's like one of those that you go, wow, that's what the room needed.
Yeah. I would say for one of our projects, it's where there's the big sectional, it'll come through eventually with the black and white striped curtains. Adding the rope trim and the button details to the sectional, I think really made the room. And we get calls about it all the time, like, where can I order this sofa? And it's like, well, you can't just order it. You have to kind of apply the trim. And they're like, what is trim? You need to hire us. It's very hard to explain how to do this. And that's actually one of the reasons why I love trim, is it's something that only designers can do. It's a way for us to showcase our abilities and our talents and our trades, and it's really fun.
Well, for me, back to this apartment I'm working on, we're doing a lot of, kind of Venetian plaster walls and keeping things more simple, and the curtains more simple. But she does like some details, and so this is not where I'm layering trims, but there's this great Samuel & Sons trim I'm using, and it's white and it has a little bit of this brown velvet on it. And it's just going to make everything kind of stand a little bit away from the wall, tie into the rug, and it's a good, hefty, thick trim, and it has good scale for the room. And so, I think it's not finished yet, but I think it's going to just really pull it all together, just that one element.
So how do you decide when a space needs more detail versus restraint? Like, I've done enough, I need to back off. I mean, what's your mentally, what are you working through when you decide that?
I think it depends on the client and the project specifically, but I like to start with restraint because that's what allows the special details to show up, but it's the details that gives it the personality and makes the project memorable. I like to use an example of, I am about to finish my 4th project with the same client, and
You're about to get that bonus card.
yeah, right? I need that bonus card. But, we did a home in Jackson Hole for them with Jeffrey Dungan, and his, we leaned in kind of more of the raw, deconstructed, natural, textural. And in this project, we're doing it with Curtis and Wyndham, who's very classical from Houston. And it's all about the trims and the details and the paneling and the millwork. And to me, it was so fascinating to be able to work with the same client and do 2 completely different styles, both equally beautiful, but it was all in the detailing and the personality and the character that you give the project, where obviously the one in Jackson Hole, it's more about restraint and pulling back. And the one in Houston, it's more about leaning into all those details, but making it whimsical and still having the restraint to allow those details to shine and have that personality.
That's why we need 10 houses.
Yeah, exactly.
We can have all the different styles expressed.
I know. It's the experience of the different places. I couldn't imagine having that many houses and having them all look the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think the details are where I kind of think of it almost as an editing place, because you can get overwhelmed by too many of them. So you do have to look at it, and you have to have the courage of your design to say, okay, it does not need this, and to be able to pull that back if it is not resolving something in the room. And even sometimes after you've put something in, it's okay to say to your client, you know what, take this out, this doesn't quite work. Because it's a process.
So I know texture plays such an important role. How do you layer texture in a way that feels layered and gives the room vitality? Because sometimes just texture, and particularly if it's a monotone texture, can fall very flat. So what's the secret?
I think it's balance. You're sort of, think of yourself as a painter, and you're painting with texture, with sheen, with pattern, with color. You have so many tools at your disposal, and you're sort of painting the story of your client, in a way that expresses what you want it to express. But I think you just have to have a really clear idea of what you're saying in this room. And once you know what the story is, then I think it becomes really easy to figure out, I need a little more texture here, I need more pattern here. And that will also tell you how much detail and layers you can add.
It's really interesting when we're scheming things in the office. We always say, if I'll meet with the team, I'm like, okay, well, this is a beautiful scheme, but what fabric is the curtains? What's on the sofa? What's going on the chairs? Where's the rug? What are the walls? And sometimes they go, and you really have to think these things out ahead of time, because you might think that something could be beautiful for the curtains, but maybe it's not appropriate. Maybe it's not the right weight, the right texture. And so before you show a client, you really have to go through that mental exercise of what is everything going on. because your client will ask you that in the meeting. And there's certainly so many people who can throw together a beautiful scheme, but not knowing its place is a huge part of it.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, you have to think about what scale those curtains will be. Like if it's a wall of curtains, that's going to be a lot of pattern.
Right.
And, having that imagination of, color blocking and that color balance is it takes some time.
It does.
And how do you decide, like on drapery, trim down the leading edge was so popular. Now I'm seeing more tasseled trim layered behind tape trim. So at what point do you say, oh gosh, this is a fun part? I mean, tassels are pretty fun. So, but everybody doesn't love them, but they have their place, right? So how do you kind of think about those kind of details?
I guess for me, I think about like what level of charm or whimsy am I trying to add? Is it, am I trying to make something really charming, really whimsical, and then, a tassel is like the perfect thing? Mm-hmm. Or am I trying to make something look really traditional and kind of, serious and very Park Avenue? Then maybe it's a tape trim and something a little bit more refined than tassels, which I think is just more whimsical than stately.
Well, and I think it goes back to the thing you both were talking about as well, scale, right? Because you're not going to put a big tasseled trim on every curtain.
Right.
And so, scale is so important. I think that so much of this is subjective, but one thing you can really get wrong is scale. And you can tell when it's wrong.
Well, I heard one designer said, oh, every rule is made to be broken. And another designer said, no, that is not true. That there are rules there for a reason, and some rules you cannot break. They totally make a room feel beautiful and welcoming versus overwhelming or like not well thought out, which is, I'm sure, as designers, you're always thinking about scale and proportion and ceiling height and how does this relate to each other?
You have to be, and you have to be constantly, if you're lucky enough to work with an architect on a project, talking to your architect and making sure you have updated elevations and looking at those elevations and scaling things in on the elevations, the curtains and everything. Because you don't want to go install that expensive project and realize you got the scale of something wrong.
Yeah, that's already hurting my heart.
Yes.
Hearing you say those words.
We all have some stories we can tell, for sure.
And we are here to hear him.
Well, how about, I'm sure everyone's had this experience, but when you've installed those custom curtain rods and you're like, oh, that's way too big.
Yeah.
And those have to go back and you have to change them out, or when they're too skinny. I mean, you have to get the scale of those rods depending on the curtain height and the windows.
And lighting, the scale of lighting, I think, is one thing that, I'll be going over some things with the team and I'm like, did you scale this in? Because, this is like this, the room's like that, and that's a hard thing, and you've got to really work that muscle and practice that and keep looking at things and going and seeing them.
Bunny actually taught me a little cheat.
Okay.
She taught me how to scale a chandelier for a dining room. You add the length and the width, and that's your diameter. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, she's a genius.
She knows what she's talking about most of the time. So. But, it's the thing we talk about in the office is that, for years, she's always said, did you scale it in? Did you see it? Did you sit in it? We're like, did you smell it? Taste it, because these things are so important. I've seen people in the office make the mistake of like, these chairs are beautiful at auction. No one went to see them. They bought them, they came in, they're child's chairs. Yeah. Did anyone look at that,
Yeah.
And so now we have a great pair of child's chairs in inventory. If anyone needs some, they're lovely. But so this is also, it's harder and harder to do what we do. So we have now started asking people to send pictures of people sitting in the chairs if it's somewhere far away. So now we have this great collection of people sitting in chairs because it really shows the scale of them.
Well, and sitting in a chair, like I'm 5'4", but my husband's 6'2".
Well, they do tell it often. They're like, I am 6'2". I did some modeling. We got one of those ones. Okay.
I have never done any modeling. I mean, but that is a real thing. Who's going to be sitting there? Yeah. Is this primarily going to be for a tall person or for a shorter person? I mean, now you can solve it by putting pillows behind, but if you don't want to do that, you've got to think about that at the get-go, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I would say that's something that people are asking for every day. In a world that we're buying a lot online, I have clients every day say, I have to sit in the sofa. They want to sit in the sofa. So we've kind of established to where we do a sitting at our upholstery workroom where we either fly them in or go take a trip there. And before the fabric's put on, we sit in as many things as we possibly can, because it's so different based on the scale of the person.
And the pitch, all of a sudden, and somebody wants a sofa they can nap on. And
that's right.
Right. So, I mean, this is kind of are there trims that you think should enjoy a resurgence, or you're seeing a resurgence, and then following that up, are there trends that you wish would go away? And that doesn't resolve around trims necessarily.
I don't know. I don't know that anything should necessarily go away. I mean, I think I always find it so interesting when I'm looking at a magazine and I see something someone has used that hasn't been used in a while, and I go, oh, I should do that. That looks great, and it's constantly being inspired. And I mean, life's short. We should have a little bit of fun, and so I don't know anything that should necessarily go away.
Yeah, I mean, trim is so delightful. Let's please not make it go away. I love all of it. I want more and more and more of it.
You reminded me about glass block. Has anyone else seen that glass block is coming back?
Glass block is back, yes.
It's coming back. Who would have thought?
We're talking about trim. We could get into some other things.
No, we're talking about everything.
Oh,
yeah.
We're okay.
No, I was saying it's coming back.
I know.
I've been seeing the ads
I
now.
know.
It's like, oh my goodness.
I know.
Yeah, we just saw a house and they had glass block in one of the bathrooms. And I was like, well, it's coming back. He's like, no, please take it away.
Yeah, there is that saying that if you've done it once in your lifetime, you probably shouldn't redo it. So, I mean, I think that just comes from scar tissue. Our parents had olive green appliances that should probably never come back in my lifetime. I don't think it will. I feel pretty confident about that. But, I'm seeing a lot of bullion fringe that, for a while it just wasn't that popular, and people tended to do the small welting, very understated, but now I'm just seeing just a tremendous resurgence in much bolder trims and details like that.
Well, I mean, don't you find some of your clients have emotional reactions to these things?
Yeah.
Oh, my grandmother had that. No, what we were raised around, right? Yes, some of it's so tied into how we were raised and what we were raised around, right? So I always think it's fun when somebody has an emotional reaction. I'm like, oh, tell me more.
Noted.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's funny because it's kind of an either or. I don't think I've ever, I think that's really cool. So there's the traditionalists, the people who like whimsy, who like decoration. But we do a lot of bouillon on sofas and, I mean, just everything, benches.
So how do you approach your finishing touches differently in a modern, a little more contemporary, let's say, interior versus one that's a little more traditional?
I think in a modern setting, we sort of use trim as something to underline a philosophy. So let's say it's about clean line, emphasize the clean lines of a sofa, or something that's really just, clean and pretty, and just, what you were saying about the brown fuzzy velvet trim, how it just made something stand out. It could be something like that, but in a very clean, sort of elegant way.
Because that is the thing about trims. They really do finish it and complete it. When something doesn't have a trim, it's maybe it's like missing something.
Yeah.
Did you hide that?
It was here, but I
was
didn't
ready.
quite know where
She
to
was
put
ready
it.
to get it going.
But when we were talking about it, it could use a little.
So funny.
Elizabeth was here 10 minutes early to redesign.
We put our own little spin on the set decor. So, Marie, what are your? Because I do know that you tend to troll in the more modern interiors, and I feel like you rely a lot on like stone finishes and doing that, and you're focusing because a modern house calls for different trim, right?
Absolutely. And I think you have to be as intentional. One is much more layered, but modern details, the whole point is to almost make it look effortless. And there's so much planning on the front end to make it look effortless. And I loved what you said, making those intentional choices, because I never want to work on a modern house that feels cold. You still want to bring in that warmth. You still want to bring in the layering, and whether it's trims or a flush stone baseboard, whatever it is that you're bringing in for the finishing touches, I think you just have to kind of pare back and allow for a lot more pause than you do in a traditional home where it's a little bit more about the layering and the addition of details that bring that warmth.
Well, and in Texas, I know there, heat's an issue, so ceilings are very high, and rooms tend to be big because everything's bigger and better in Texas. So how do you? It's like had the open concept that everybody wanted the open concept, and now people are kind of like, well, maybe I really like my space, and I need a door or whatever. But when you have ginormous rooms, how do you make them feel like somewhat like a home? It's a home versus a hotel lobby.
Yeah, and I think that's a trap people get into, especially when you have so much space to work with. Like lots in Texas are just larger. And I always say the problem with that is that you solve every problem with bigger. You can't fit the double washer dryer. Let's just make the room bigger. And so these homes just get so big, and you lose the connection to the human scale. And I know that there's a place for grand, but I think that, I think you even see the popularity of these more charming, smaller spaces, even on social media, that people are just drawn to. Maybe they don't know why, but it's that kind of connection to the human proportion and bringing that into your space. And that's why I think so often remodels have that charm to them, because you can't just solve it by make it bigger. And you have to deal with the unperfect ceiling, and you have to do the hobbit door. And like those imperfections are what make it interesting, just like a person. It's our flaws sometimes that make us the most interesting.
Well, it's like antique, give it soul. And it's not that new furniture isn't wonderful, but that antique piece that has a story. Hopefully it's your story, where you found it on travel, how you brought it back, or the nightmare to get it back, or those kind of things. But those scale things, and like in New York, y'all are living in smaller spaces, but y'all tend to have like homes out in Connecticut or whatever that are bigger and whatever, or you go to Central Park,
Marie yesterday was saying, oh yeah, I'm doing this really tiny house. It's like 4,000 square feet. I'm like, that's a mansion in New York. So, we have a completely different sense of scale, and actually what you're trying to do in a New York City apartment is make it feel bigger. So it's sort of like an opposite problem. You have so many little fiddly corners and doors, lots of doors and hallways to separate these spaces. And how do you add?
So where are you on color drenching? Because I know that a lot of people have a small space, and some people say it needs to be very light to make it feel bigger, and some people say no, we can do it very dark and do every inch of it in the same color, and that's going to make it feel
grander necessarily, but it does make it really cozy. So if you want a really cozy space, like paint it all gentleman's gray. But if you want something sort of magical and delightful, then wallpaper it all. So I love color drenching and pattern drenching, but it has to be the right environment and the right, not do that in a living room.
Right.
I think that's just not going to look great. Do you agree?
I
Would you
completely
call
agree
it
with all
drenched?
of that.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I don't have anything to add.
So I want to talk to y'all a little bit less about trim, but these ladies have very successful design businesses. Marie has, is that right? So what is your biggest challenge in running a design business today?
Ooh, honestly, my biggest challenge is clients wanting us to install jobs before the construction is done.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot figure out that problem. I am installing a job in 2 weeks that doesn't have a ceiling. And it's like we push back, but you can only say no. I mean, if the client is demanding it, I'm like, do you really want us to bring $1 million of furniture into this construction zone?
Wow.
Well, they think that you're going to be able to get their contractor out. And I'm always like, what? You know, I'm like, yeah, I get there and I'm like, there's toilets in the living room that haven't been installed. Like now I'm the contractor saying to the plumber, like, install the toilets. And it's happening more and more because I also think this Amazon world of things, you know, it's another thing we were talking about last night. I had to explain to a client, he was like, when am I going to get my package of proposals at the end of the meeting? I said, well, this is not click and add to your cart, you know. There's a whole process. There's this, I have to chase the vendor's busy, I gotta get the quote, then I gotta get the fabric quote, you know. And so that I think is the biggest thing right now. You know, this, I mean, I get it. When I order something from Amazon, it says it's gonna take 3 days. I'm like, what do you mean? It should be here tomorrow, you know? I mean, we're all like this. But I don't know what the answer to that is, so.
I think the thing that there's like people actually making this. I'll send them videos. I'll send videos of people making trim or weaving the carpet. That we just had a client who was waiting about, I don't know, it's been about a year for this rug and it's finally getting delivered. But every time she's like, why is it taking so long? I send her another video. I'm like, people weaving, you know. So I feel like that's the only way to explain why things take so long is it's handcraft and it's not, as you say, not click and order because I have to explain to the craftsman. So, you know, I think that's, just keep leaning into the story of handcraft. Try it.
Okay,
I mean, I have to say I have done that. Some don't really care, though.
So we're almost out of time for this part, but what every Southern home should have.
A moment of hospitality. Whether it's a tray that people feel like they can just serve themselves or like a little cozy nook that you welcome people in. You should always have that moment that you've thought through in your house, how to make people feel welcome.
Yeah, that sounds
A bar.
yeah.
We'll all be going to Houston.
There you go.
Let's go to Marie's.
Please.
Should have, I agree. I think the hospitality thing is really important. But I think also I love a really good entry. You know, you want people to walk in and just be like, wow, this house is going to have a great story.
Yeah.
I agree with all of these. So I would also say a really great powder room because it's the only room in your house where someone goes and shuts the door. So give them something good to look at because they're going to be sneaking around looking at what do you have on the walls, what's on the ceiling, what are the light fixtures. They might take a selfie. Like, just make it good.
Okay, so we're going to open this up for questions. Katie has a mic, so if any of you have any questions from our
Questions in this crowd?
I've got a question.
Okay.
You mentioned the Amazon world, and that's kind of something we've been talking about in our office, that it's not Amazon. How do y'all deal with indecisive clients? And are you coming across that as we live in this Pinterest world where they're bringing you stuff, they're always changing their mind, or they just can't make a final decision?
We had this conversation at the office the other day. We were having a studio meeting, and I said to everyone, I said, remember, there's just more hand-holding now. It just seems like there is, right? There's just more explaining, there's more indecision, there's more yes, and then later, I don't know, they're seeing, and, you know, sometimes the competition with your friends, you know? So it's tough. There's more education on our part. There's more reassurance. And there's more playing that, you know, best friend, psychiatrist, like, this is gonna look great. And at the end of the day, you know, I have a client right now who had worked with someone else and didn't get the results she wanted. And so I'm bringing everything and we're just trying it. So it's slow going, but you know, we bring in a few mirrors, we hold them up. We bring in some chairs, and she knows she's going to pay for that time and pay for the movers, and she's okay with that because, you know, she knows she needs to see that. So it's about finding what that particular client needs. And I did say to my team, I said, remember, AI can't do this. So if you are good at this and you can be a good hand holder and a good confidant, we will continue to keep doing business. So there's the silver lining.
I was telling my husband about this problem, and he said, oh, you should just use rope-a-dope. And I was like, what is rope-a-dope? And apparently this is like a move by Muhammad Ali. He would just get his opponent to keep punching and punching until they wore themselves out. And so I was like, oh, so basically I let the wear themselves out.
Like a toddler.
I was just going to say, this is like a small child at bedtime.
You wait to make the changes then until they've sent.
Yeah, I just wait till they're exhausted. And then eventually you get that email like, I don't know, you're the designer. I was like, yes, I am. Yes, I am.
I'm glad you asked.
I like this rope-a-dope.
I love that. That's amazing. We do a lot more renderings nowadays because it's easier to do and it helps them see. It's also why I don't believe in set fees, because sometimes it's the hourly rate that helps them to stop at some point and just trust the expert.
Yes.
Hi. Can you guys talk more about your business structure and your pricing? Is it hourly, taking into account maybe leaving time and money for the flexibility of trim and indecision, and what you guys have found working at the level that you're working at?
Yeah. Sure. My business is structured into 4 design teams, and I would say my hourly rate, as compared to things I've heard in the industry, is actually lower. But we like to spend more time to do all the architectural details and the drawing. So I've never, in recent years, felt the need to increase it. But then beyond that, we just charge a markup on the cost of goods sold, which is just the furnishing, drapery, lighting, things like that. And then we just build that the whole way.
Same, hourly. We have different hourly fees for different tasks. And Brett is in the back. He hates hourly because everyone has to submit the hours, you know. But and people are not necessarily great about that. But it's really great because you're really being paid for the time that you spend. And also, it's rope-a-dope. You know, they're going to try this, and you have to try that. So we do that. And what else can I tell you about our business? It's really hard to run a business, isn't it? It's not easy. It took a really long time to develop the business. And yeah, that I don't know what else to say. Unless we have drinks or something.
Yeah. We do a combination of hourly and markup. You know, Bunny's been in business a long time and did not do a lot of hourly. And then I started saying, because, you know, people really will take advantage of that.
Yeah.
You know, so many clients were doing that. And then all of a sudden they're like, let me talk to you about my garden. And I'm like, oh boy, you know, here we go, because Bunny knows gardens. She's not gonna do the landscape plans and do the exact plantings, but she can help you design a garden. And then all of a sudden she was doing all this. And I said, we're not making any money on this and you're spending so much time. And so we really kind of revamped things. We've done more hourly. We still do a markup on goods. And we're working on doing more hourly, but it is hard that keeping track of it and hounding everyone to, have they given their hours? Yeah. Brent? Yep. It is. Okay.
Got a question.
Well, and that's one way to talk to your team about how they're doing, is comparing their billable hours compared to their non-billable.
Oh.
And so you can.
I mean, back in the oldie, and when I started my career in public accounting, and you had to charge in 15-minute increments.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you were not considered to be productive if you were anything less than 70% billable. And I mean, if I think I'm overwhelmed counting for my time, you'll find that you waste more time than you thought you did. But you know, that's very old school thought, but it is about owning your time and what you're actually doing with your time.
You and Bunny's segment on Homeworthy, the house on Long Island that you all did.
Yes, thank
But I was curious to know, what's the one thing that you all did to your homes to elevate your interiors?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things, and there's a lot of things I still want to do. You know, it's like the cobbler's children don't have shoes. I'd really love to do our bathrooms, but I don't. You know, I mean, if for me, living room, we have kind of a big open living room dining thing, and that was great. And you know, in New York, it's tough because you can only work certain times of the year in your apartment. My building only allows a few projects going on at one time. And so when we bought our apartment, it was like, well, we had to get in quickly, so we had to do these things. And there's all of that negotiation. So I would say there's more things I want to do to elevate it. So that's a tough one.
But Young has a new beautiful house. It's in the book. You should see it. It's amazing. So yeah.
Well, I got it done because I had the book. So I had to do it. But I would say the one thing that felt really luxurious was we have like our favorite upholsterer. I made my dream sofa to my specs. We always, as Marie was saying, we have our clients sit and, you know, they decide what's comfortable for them. We adjust the thickness of the cushion, the pitch, you know, this and that and the other. So I made my dream sofa with a spring edge front. It's just so deep. It's got a scoop so you can lean back, and basically I can practically lie down in it and watch TV. So that was that was for me.
I love it. I build the house I'm in right now, and I would say the most luxurious thing I got for myself were the windows. And I live in the Heights, so it's like smaller lots, and the houses are really close. And we live on the end of the street, so I kind of designed like a U-shaped house to kind of have the illusion of all this space. And the windows to me were the jewelry.
Mm-hmm. Any more?
Hi. I was just curious as to how much time and energy you're putting into your Instagrams. I don't know if y'all are outsourcing them. There's just so much content and so many designers who are influencer-y more so, and you know, we want to maintain just a really high level and professional Instagram and presence, but don't want to waste a lot of. We want to be decorators. So, what do you feel like is a good balance?
We
talk
talked
about that a lot. Yeah.
We talked about this last night.
Yeah.
Marie, take it away.
I have two marketing people. One is full-time, and she's the one doing all of the posting. I will jump on for personal moments, but we kind of take the stance of the firm's perspective, not just Marie's. I think there's a lot of accounts that do better when it's a little bit more personal, but definitely don't have the bandwidth to give to that every day. But I think you kind of have to decide what lane you want to take if we're talking about social media specifically. But then I have, you know, somebody who's more PR related, who's part-time, who is constantly answering editors' questions and things like that. I have outsourced to, we've used the same PR person. With my first book, I did that, and that was amazing. I feel like there's different avenues you can take in different parts of your career.
We don't have a social media person, which is why we haven't posted our book launch party pictures about a month ago. We have beautiful photos, but I just haven't had the time.
Brett, I think you have something to do.
Brett is definitely not going to do that because he's so busy getting those hours from everyone. So I agree. It's impossible. My focus is the design work, and my team. And if I have a little energy at the end of the day, then I'll post something and answer people. But I'm just, don't even try to DM me. I don't answer DMs because it's just really overwhelming.
We have someone on staff who does, so it's all very confusing because there's Williams Lawrence Instagram, there's a Bunny Williams Home Instagram, then Bunny has Bunny's Eye, and then I have my own Instagram. So it's confusing for people, but we have someone who in our office who does the posting for the two business Instagrams. And then Bunny will do her own, and I will do my own. Before I was gonna be an interior designer, I was gonna be a photographer, so I compulsively take photos. It's just something I do. I'm constantly like, oh, that's cool, oh, that's inspiration. My husband calls me Insta girl. I'm like, because I'm not doing it for Instagram, but then I do have all of this content. Mm-hmm. And so I will post to my stories usually at the end of the day, the things I've seen that day or what I've done. So for me, taking the photos isn't the problem, but it is. I mean, we were talking about this recently in our office, because now it's like, well, you're a designer, and also do you have to be posting your outfit and tagging what you're wearing and and then selling that, and there's all these other things that are happening in the space, and and then you see people who post work that isn't theirs who are getting big followings from that, and just because their grid looks completely curated and beautiful, and so I think we're in the wild, wild west of it right now, and I would just say that you should post. I think you need a presence. I know people get work from Instagram. And I do think clients who, if they're going to hire you, they go look at your Instagram if they've heard about you. So you do want it to look good. You want it to, show who you are. I've gone through phases where I was posting too much work, and our PR person was like, post a little more personal, and then, so it's, people, listen, we are all voyeurs, right? Like, I want to know what you're doing at home. Like, I want to see some of that too. So, I don't know. I don't know that I have a great answer, but I think you should just do it the way you want to do it.
I think that's true for your design work too, because design work can all start looking alike. We can be overly influenced. So, I know we're out of time. We have a book signing with Young. If you need to grab Elizabeth, Marie, they're going to be heading to the airport, but the book signing will be up in 311 at Samuel & Sons. They have refreshments, and it will be wonderful to see all of their things. And thank you so much to this really great panel.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you.